Good afternoon. Welcome back. I hope you all had a great lunch. I'm going to kick off the afternoon reviewing the IRF QRP, or Quality Reporting Program reports. So in addition to the slide presentation that you have available, you will also want to locate in your folder packet number 7. We'll be using that a little later in the presentation to do an interactive activity. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first two slides in your slide presentation include a list of acronyms that are used throughout the presentation. In addition to the acronym, you can see that we have included a definition of that acronym. Now, I'm not going to go through each of those for you, but please feel free to refer back to this list should you have any questions about the meaning of the acronym as I'm going through the presentation. There we go. So there's our second slide of acronyms. And my clicker's being just a little fussy. My apologies. Let's see if we can get him to... Sorry, Bridget. It's just being a little finicky.
Maybe we need to replace the battery. I'm going to get a new battery.
Okay. Sorry about that. The clicker's tired, needs a new battery. Well, we did get advanced to the objectives page, so let's go ahead and talk about that while Bridget gets the new battery. So the objectives of this training: it is my hope that following this training, you will be able to identify the types of quality measures, or QMs, by data source, that you will be able to describe key inpatient rehab facility, or IRF QRP reports, that you will be able to locate and navigate the IRF Compare website, and that you will be able to utilize the IRF QRP reports to perform a quality improvement analysis activity. There are 3 types of quality measures in the IRF QRP program. So as you can see on this slide, there are assessment-based measures, which are quality measures that are calculated from the data submitted in the IRF-PI record. There are CDC and HSN measures and Medicare claims-based measures. Okay, thank you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, if you could just test it.
Yep, perfect, thank you. So let's take a look at the assessment-based measures that are included in the IRF QRP. You'll see that we have a list of the measures displayed here. In addition, you will see that the data collection start date for that particular measure is listed, in addition to the first time that those measure results are reported publicly. The data being publicly reported in 2020 for the 4 outcome measures, functional outcome measures, will include data from the calendar year 2019 IRF-PI assessments. So that would include IRF-PI discharges that have a discharge date between January and December 2019. So you can see our measures here. The first is the falls with major injury measure, the percent of long-term care hospital patients with an admission and discharge functional assessment and a care plan that addresses function, the IRF functional outcome measure change in self-care, the change in mobility score, the discharge self-care score, the discharge mobility score, the new DRR measure that Terry spoke about this morning, and the changes in skin integrity pressure ulcer injury measure. Here's a list of the CDC and HSN measures. So you have the CAUTI measure, the influenza vaccination coverage among healthcare personnel measure, and the CDI measure. And here's a list of your claims-based measures. The first is the MSPB, or the Medicare Spending Per Beneficiary measure, the Discharge to Community measure, the Potentially Preventable 30-Day Post-Discharge Readmission measure, and the Potentially Preventable Within-Stay Readmission measure. It's important to note that the Potentially Preventable 30-Day Post-Discharge Readmission measure and the Potentially Preventable Within-Stay Readmission measures will be suppressed on the IRF Compare website until further notice. Here's a list of measures that have been removed from the IRF QRP. For the percent of residents or patients with pressure ulcers that are new or worsened, the data will continue to display on the IRF Compare website for the old measure until the new measure, pressure ulcer or injury, replaces it in the fall of 2020. For the percent of residents or patients who were assessed and appropriately given the seasonal influenza vaccine, the last refresh for this measure data on IRF Compare will be December 2019. The NHSN MRSA measure no longer requires data collection, as you know, and the last refresh for this measure on IRF Compare will be fall of 2019. And finally, the all-cause unplanned readmission measure was removed beginning with the fiscal year 2019 IRF QRP and is no longer reported on the IRF Compare website. Now, this graphic may look familiar to those who have participated in the IRF QRP training in the past. This graphic shows two types of reporting: confidential reporting and public reporting. The confidential reporting includes the IRF Review and Correct report, the IRF QM or Quality Measure reports, and the Provider Preview report. The public reporting portion of the graphic identifies the data that are publicly reported on the Compare website. Now, the confidential reports are only available to the providers to view. The data on those confidential reports are not shown on the Compare website directly. So this graphic shows how the data from the Provider Preview reports eventually makes it to the Compare website. It's sort of a flow. So now we're going to take a pause and do our first question. So if you'd like to access your Slido applications, I'll give you a moment to do so. Okay, so your first question is, Medicare spending per beneficiary is an example of which type of quality measure? Is the correct answer A, CDC NHSN measure, B, an assessment-based measure, C, a claims-based measure, or D, none of the above? And I'll give everyone a moment to enter their responses. And I can see that we're still getting some responses coming in. And it looks like our responses are slowing down, so let's go ahead and take a look at the correct answer. So the correct answer is C, and the majority of folks chose that answer, so that was great. Good job. The MSPB, or Medicare Spending Per Beneficiary measure, is a claims-based measure. Let's spend a little time and do an overview of the reports that are available to you. You can see that we have the Review and Correct report, the Quality Measure or QM reports, and the Provider Preview report that we'll be reviewing. Let's begin with the Review and Correct report. The Review and Correct report is a user-requested or on-demand report that's available to you in the CASPER reporting application. By user-requested or on-demand, we mean that this is a report that you can access and run at your frequency as often as you would like to run it. This report is not automatically generated or created for you. The data on these reports are confidential to the providers, and they will provide a quarterly cumulative performance rates for the assessment-based publicly reported measures. The report will display data for the 4 most recent quarters. The report contains what we call rolling quarter functionality, meaning as a new reporting quarter is added to the report, the oldest quarter is removed from the report. Data on this report are only observed or raw data. Risk-adjusted rates are not shown. However, risk-adjusted rates are needed in order to calculate the discharge self-care and discharge mobility measures that display on the review and correct reports. The data on this report are updated weekly until the data correction deadline has been reached. When the reporting quarter ends, data for that reporting quarter become available on the review and correct report the next calendar day. So for example, the reporting quarter for quarter 2 2019 will end on June 30th, and effective July 1st, the next calendar day, data for that reporting quarter will be available on your review and correct report. This table provides information about the data collection and data correction deadline dates. And remember that the final data submission deadlines for the IRF QRP are based upon the quarterly data collection timeframes. All IRF-PI data must be accepted into the ASAP system prior to the final submission deadline in order to be included in the measure results. So let's take a look at the table. As you can see, the data submission deadline for quarter 1 which is January 1st through March 31st, is August 15th. So as soon as the data for quarter 1 become available on the review and correct report, which would be on April 1st, because it's the first day following the end of the quarter, you have between April 1st and August 15th to correct those data. For quarter 2, the data for that reporting quarter become available on July 1st, and you have until November 15th to correct those data. For quarter 3, which includes discharge dates July 1st through September 30th, the data for that reporting quarter become available on the report October 1st, and you have until February 15th to correct those data. And finally, for quarter 4, which is October 1st through December 31st, those data become available on the review and correct report on January 1st, and you have until May 15th to correct those data. Once the data correction deadline date has been reached, no further changes to the data in that reporting quarter can be made. The data are frozen and set aside to be used in your public reporting results on the CASPER website. Now, hopefully you've all been in running the IRF review and correct reports, but we have included some new enhancements to the report effective April 1st. And these enhancements will allow you to customize your report to best suit your needs. One big enhancement is the addition of patient-level data in addition to the facility-level data. So the patient-level records that were included in that particular reporting quarter will be displayed in a table and indicate whether or not that patient's stay record was included in the measure results, or whether it was triggered, in other words. Another new feature is the ability for you to request the patient-level results in a comma-separated value, or CSV file. Now, this CSV file, if you wish to request it, will allow you to sort or manipulate the data to suit your analytic needs. When requesting the report in CASPER, you will be able to identify how you would like the data on the report to be sorted. So you can select a sort by patient last name, patient first name, patient status, meaning whether the measure was triggered, not triggered, or excluded, a sort by discharge date, or admission date. You will also be able to sort select the particular measures that you would like the data or the report to be to display data for. So that's another new feature as well. And here is a picture of the new enhanced review and correct report. The facility level results that you're accustomed to seeing are displayed in the table at the top of the report, and the corresponding patient level information is displayed beneath the facility level aggregated table. So looking at this report, you'll see that the measure name is displayed above the facility level results. And in this example, it's showing the data for the application of functional assessment measure. Beneath the table of facility level result, the measure name, is the table legend, which indicates the information and helps identify for you whether that particular patient's record was triggered the measure, whether it did not trigger the measure, or whether there is a dash indicating that the data were not available or not applicable. So let's take a look at the tables that display beneath the table legend. The top table is the facility level results, as I said. On the left side of the table, you'll see that the reporting quarter displays the CMS ID, which is a unique ID assigned to the measure. The start and end dates, which are the start and end data collection dates. The next column is the data correction deadline date. So that's the date in which you must have any corrections or new assessments included in, submitted to the ASAP system so they can be included in the measure results for that reporting quarter. And the last column on the left side that I like to point out is the data correction period as of the report run date. So as of the date that you run the report will identify whether that reporting quarter is still open, in which you would know that you could submit any later corrected assessments and have data from those assessments included in the measure calculations. So you'll see for the reporting quarters, you will see a status of open or closed. And of course, in the cumulative row that displays at the bottom, that wouldn't be applicable. So it is by reporting quarter that you'll see whether they're open or closed. On the right side of the table, you'll see the actual measure results. So the first column is the number of IRF stays that triggered the quality measure, so that's really your numerator. The next column is the number of IRF stays that were included in the denominator. And finally, the final column is your facility percent. So those facility level results probably look very familiar to you. Beneath the facility level results are the patient level results, and those patient level results are those patient records that were included in the calculations for the reporting period. I'm going to advance the slide and give you a little bigger look at the patient level results. And then we'll take a look at this table as well. So as you can see, the data is displayed by reporting quarter. The patient name, patient ID. The patient ID is that unique ID that's assigned to the patient's record by the ASAP system at the time that the system processes the IRF-PI record. The admission date on the IRF-PI assessment is displayed, as well as the discharge date. The data correction deadline for that particular record based upon the reporting quarter that record falls into is displayed. The data correction period as of the report run date is identified. So is that record still able to be modified should you need to do so? And that's identified whether it's open or closed. And finally, the status of the measure results for that particular record. So looking at the first row, you'll see that the reporting quarter is quarter 4, 2018. That means that that patient's IRF-PI record had a discharge date in quarter 4, 2018. And the patient names displayed next in the patient ID. And then you can see the admission and discharge dates for that particular IRF-PI record are displayed. And the data correction deadline, and as we know, quarter 4, 2018, the data correction deadline for that record is May 15th of 2019. as of the date that this report was run, and is still true until next week on the 15th, this reporting quarter is still open and corrections can be made for that particular assessment. Finally, for the status column, you'll see that this patient's measure was not triggered based on the NT value. So that's how you will read the patient level results, and it's sort of similar to what you're used to on the patient level QM results. Let's go ahead and talk about the quality measure reports. The quality measure reports, as I said earlier, are also considered to be confidential feedback reports. They are user-requested on-demand reports in the CASPER reporting application. They include process and outcome QM results, and they report data at patient and facility levels for a single reporting period. The measure results on the QM reports are risk-adjusted where applicable, whereas I said with the review and correct report, the risk-adjusted values do not display on the review and correct report. When you're requesting the QM reports, you can specify the reporting period of choice to obtain your aggregate performance data for the current and past 3 quarters. And it's important to keep in mind that depending on when you run the report, the current quarter may only include partial data. There are 2 different kinds of quality measure reports. There's the facility level quality measure report and the patient level quality measure report. The patient level quality measure report only contains assessment-based quality measure data, whereas the facility level report, as you know, contains the assessment-based data and the CDC NHSN measures, as well as the claims-based measures. So the quality measure reports provide a snapshot of performance for the quality improvement purposes based upon the data submitted. And as I said, the results are risk-adjusted if it's applicable to the measure. These data on the reports are available to you prior to public reporting and are for internal purposes only. The data on these reports are not for public reporting. While the CDC and claims-based measure results are displayed on the facility level report, there are no patient level results for those particular measures. One important note to keep in mind is that the review and correct reports and quality measure reports are not static and do not match. The review and correct report data are recalculated on a weekly basis until the data correction deadline has passed. The data on the quality measure reports are calculated on a monthly basis instead, so there's really no way to compare the data between the 2 reports. And here's a picture of the facility level report, and I'm sure this looks very familiar to many of you. You'll see that the report displays the measure name and the CMS measure ID in the table, followed by the numerator, denominator, facility percent, and national average values. Now, this particular screenshot is showing measures that are not risk adjusted, but if we were going to show a measure that was risk adjusted, there would be an additional column for facility risk adjusted values as well. And here is a sample of the patient level report. This report displays the patients whose records were included in the reporting period, record-specific information such as the admission and discharge date, and indicators identifying the status of the measure triggered, whether it was triggered, not triggered, or excluded. So in this screenshot, you'll see that this patient level report is showing the desirable outcome measures. For example, the patients with admission assessment, and admission and discharge assessment, and a care plan that addresses function. So in this example, when you look at the first measure column, you'll see that there are values that display in that column. There's an X, an NT, and they're or an X or an NT. So the X indicates that that measure was triggered, which is a positive thing for our function measure, right? It's a positive. So if you have an NT in the desirable outcome measure column, that is a less desirable event because you really want that to be that measure to be triggered. So an NT might give you an opportunity to do some follow-up to see why that measure wasn't triggered for the patient. Now, conversely, for the undesirable outcome measures, such as the falls with major injury measure, the values will represent different meaning. So if we were to show you a picture of the falls with a major injury measure and there was an X in the column, that would be undesirable, right? Because that would mean that the patient had a fall with major injury and that measure was triggered. For the if the NT displayed for the falls with major injury measure, that would be a good thing because your patient didn't have a fall with major injury during the reporting period. So you sort of have to pay attention to the type of measures that are being reported and read your table legend and interpret the results based upon the type of measure that's being shown. So in the fall of 2019, there will be some additional enhancements to the patient-level quality measure report as well. This slide will show you the type of changes that will be included in the report. So taking, for example, the falls with major injury measure, we will take a look on the next slide, but I'll talk about the changes that you can expect to see. The quality measure legend section will display, and it will present each measure included in the report, including the following information: a measure interpretation, and by measure interpretation, that means is it a desirable outcome measure, an undesirable outcome measure, or a change in functional status. It will identify the report period, the CMS ID, and the CMS ID discharge dates. And using the legend, you will be able to identify the measure for each patient included in that particular reporting period and whether they triggered the numerator. So let's take a look now. Here's a sample of what the report will look like this fall. So you can see it looks considerably different than it does now. So at the top, you will see the IRF-PI quality measures legend table. That is a new table to the patient level report. As we take a look at the table, you'll see that there's a QM number column and the measure name column. So each measure has a QM number assigned to it. As I mentioned, there will be a measure interpretation column, and those measures will be listed according to the type of measure that they are. So in this example, you'll see that the pressure ulcer injury and application of falls measures are undesirable outcome measures. And then there's a section for the desirable outcome measures, and then the measures that are included in the change in functional status. More toward the right side of this table, you will see the report period, and that is the reporting period for which the data are being displayed, the unique CMS measure ID, and the CMS ID by discharge date column. So beneath this measures legend table is the table legend, and this is familiar to us because we've looked at this before. It identifies or defines those values that are displayed in the measure results for the patient level data. So you can see that a dash would indicate that the data are not available or not applicable. The X would mean that the measure was triggered, NT not triggered, E is excluded, and a note to inform you that the change in functional status values are observed change in functional scores from admission to discharge. So as we look down to the table beneath this, then you can cross-reference the columns that are listed for each patient with the quality measure legend table. So let's take a look specifically at the application of falls measure. And looking at the quality measures legend table. That is the QM number 2, highlighted by the red arrow to the left of the table. You can follow down to the patient level results table at the bottom and identify the column QM number 2 and identify for each of the patients that are included in that reporting sample or reporting period whether the falls with major injury measure was triggered. So let's just take a look at the first row of the patient level results. You'll see the common patient name, right, and the patient ID and the admission date and discharge date of the IRF-PI record that was included in the measure calculations. As you proceed right across the table, beneath the red arrow, you see QM number 2. And for the first patient row in that table, that particular measure was not triggered because there's an NT displaying there, which is a positive thing. We don't want the patients to have falls with major injury. And so that's how you can cross-reference the measures in the quality measure legend table above and identify for each of those measures whether the patient stay was triggered, not triggered, or excluded. So hopefully this will provide you, a more concise look at the measure results compared to how the report is displaying them now. So how can the QM reports be helpful to you? The data, as I said, in the QM reports are refreshed monthly on the first day of every month. The report will provide updates about your facility and patient level results for a single reporting period. These reports will provide a snapshot of performance for your quality improvement purposes in your facility. It's important to remember, as I said earlier, that the data on the review and correct reports and the quality measure reports are not static and they will not match. So I just wanted to reiterate that you will not be able to reconcile the measure values between those two reports with one another. Let's take a look at our last confidential feedback report, and that is the provider preview report. Unlike the review and correct and quality measure reports, which are user-requested reports that you can run at your leisure and any frequency you wish, the provider preview report is automatically generated and saved into your provider shared folder in the CASPER reporting application. The provider preview report displays facility-level quality measure results only. And those are the results, the facility results, that will eventually be posted on the IRF Compare website. The preview report is available approximately 5 months after the end of each data collection quarter. You are allowed a 30-day preview period prior to public reporting, beginning the day that the reports are made available to you in the CASPER reporting application. You are not allowed to correct the underlying data in these reports once the data collection period has ended. All corrections must be made prior to the applicable quarterly data submission deadline, which is also referred to as a quarterly freeze date. If the data correction deadline has passed, you will not have the opportunity to request correction of the underlying publicly reported data. CMS strongly encourages you to review the data for your facility, and if you have questions related to the report, we encourage you to contact the CMS Public Reporting Help Desk at irfprquestions@cms.hhs.gov. And as you can see, we have included a link to that email address in the slide for you. If comparing the provider preview report to the IRF Compare website, you may notice a couple of differences. The first difference you would notice is that the order of the measures on the provider preview report is different than the order of the measures that are displayed on the IRF Compare website. Secondly, You will notice that the title of the measures on the provider preview report are not the consumer language titles that appear on the Compare website. There is a crosswalk available to you on the IRF Compare website that will allow you to crosswalk the titles that you see on the provider preview report to those titles, the consumer-friendly titles that are displayed on the IRF Compare website. And this is likely familiar to many of you, but this is a picture of the IRF Provider Preview Report. You'll notice that the report run date, or the date that the report was generated, is displayed in the left upper corner. Beneath this, you will see the reporting period dates. So for each of the measures that are publicly reported, you will see that the reporting period dates are displayed on the left-hand side. So for example, for the first measure, 0678, which we know is the pressure ulcer measure, on this particular preview report and for the upcoming IRF refresh, the reporting period dates will be July 1st, 2017 through June 30th, 2018. So you can cross-reference the NQF numbers that are listed at the top to the numbers that are listed in the data results below. Working down the report, you will see that the section of your facility identifying information is displayed next, including your CCN or CMS certification number, your facility name, and other demographic information. Finally, beneath this information is where you will find your measure results. The measure results are separated by the type of measures that are being reported. So you can see in this particular example, they're showing you the section of measure results for the IRF-PI quality measures, right? So those that are calculated from the IRF-PI data. And in this example, they're showing the percent of residents or patients with pressure ulcers that are new or worsened. Beneath that title, you'll see the particular measure results, the number of resident stays that were included in the numerator, the number that were included in the denominator, the facility observed percent, the facility risk-adjusted percent, and the national average. So the IRF-PI quality measures section displays first, and then beneath that section will be the CDC and HSN measures and their results, followed by the Medicare claims-based measures and their results. The provider preview reports are refreshed quarterly or automatically generated quarterly. These are not reports that you must request on your own. You are allowed a 30-day review period prior to posting of those measure results on the IRF Compare website. These reports will provide the results of your facility's performance, which may be used for quality improvement purposes. As I mentioned earlier, CMS strongly encourages you to review the results of the data on this report. If you disagree with the accuracy of the performance data, whether that's the numerator, denominator, or other QM-specific results on this report, you can request a review of the data by CMS. If you wish to have CMS review the data on the provider preview report, the request for review must be submitted within the 30-day review period that begins on the date that the reports are made available to you in the CASPER reporting application. As a reminder, you will not have the opportunity to request a correction of the underlying data if the data correction deadline has passed. So there are specific procedures that must be followed when you are requesting a CMS review of the data of your report. All requests must be emailed to the IRF PR questions at cms.hhs.gov email address. The title or subject line of the email must contain the following information: your facility's name, followed by the words public reporting request for review of data, and your facility's CCN or CMS certification number. And as you can see on this slide, we've provided a sample of the email that would show exactly what needs to be included in the subject line of that email. The body of the email must include the information identified on this slide, including your provider's CCN, your business name, business address, the name of your CEO, and contact information for that individual, and information supporting your belief that the data contained within the provider preview report are erroneous, such as the numerator, denominator, or other QM result, including but not limited to the QMs that you believe are erroneous, that are containing erroneous data, and aspects of the QM that are affected, as I said, the numerator, denominator, or other measure result. CMS will review all requests and provide a response via email. Data that CMS agrees to correct will be reflected in the subsequent quarterly release of quality data on the IRF Compare website. It's very important to remember that CMS will not review any email requests that contain protected health information. So please do not send any patient identifying information in this email request. So now we're to a few questions to break up, give you a chance to be more interactive. So go ahead and access Slido. And the question is, the review and correct report provides information for which type of quality measure? Is it A, the CDC NHSN measures, B, the claims-based measures, C, the assessment-based measures, or D, all of the above? And I'll give you all a moment to register your answer. Still have a few coming in, so we'll give it a few moments. It seems like we've got some strong answers here. So let's go ahead and take a look at the answer. So the review and correct report provides information for which type of quality measure. The correct answer is C, the assessment-based measures. It is the quality measure reports that include the CDC and HSN measures, claims-based measures, and assessment-based measures. So for the review and correct report, it's just those measures calculated from the IRF-PI data. Your next question is, which reports provide both facility and patient-level data? Is the correct answer A, the review and correct report, B, the provider preview report, C, the QM reports, D, both A and C, or E, all of the above? Still getting some responses in, so we'll wait a few more moments. Got some strong answers on letter D. We'll check in a moment and see if that's accurate. Okay, things seem to be slowing down. Let's go ahead and take a look at the answer. Great job. The correct answer is D. Both the review and correct reports and the QM reports provide facility and patient level data. Nice job. The next question, which report displays results that will be posted on the IRF Compare website? Is the correct answer A, the provider preview report, B, the QM reports, C, the review and correct report, or D, the confidential feedback report? give it a few more moments. We've still got some folks registering their answer. And it's beginning to slow down, so let's go ahead and take a look at the correct answer. And nice job. The correct answer is the provider preview report. The data that are on the provider preview report are those data that will be reported on the IRF Compare website. Nice job. All right, let's quickly review how you will obtain your reports, your IRF QRP reports from the CASPER reporting application. And this is probably very familiar to many of you, so we won't spend a lot of time. But recall that the link to the CASPER reporting application is located on the Welcome to the CMS Key Systems for Providers webpage. And you can see that the link is highlighted or circled in red. Once you select the link, you will simply log into the application using your keys, user ID, and password credentials. Select the Login button, and you will arrive at the CASPER homepage. To request the IRF QRP reports, such as the Review and Correct or the Quality Measure reports, you would select the Reports button in the menu bar and select the IRF Quality Reporting Program report category. As you can see, once the report category is selected, the reports that are available to you are displayed in the right hand side of the web page. Now I'm going to show you the new functionality that's available for the Review and Correct report. So in order to request the IRF Review and Correct report, you would simply select the report link, and you will arrive at the CASPER Report Submit page. So you can see there are many new options available for you to customize your Review and Correct report. Of course, the begin and end date values look familiar. Those were available prior to April. Remember that in order to request the date range for your report, you simply select the reporting quarter end date, and the begin reporting date will be populated for you by the application. The new features that are available are the quality measures that are displayed. You can request the report for all quality measures at once, or you can pick and choose quality measures that you would like to receive data for on the report. All quality measures will be included in the report by default. If you'd like to include 1 or 2 or 3, you can simply click on the measure name and use your control key to select one or multiple measures. Beneath the quality measures, you will see that there are 2 checkboxes. These are new and allow you to include the patient level data, should you wish to do so, or to have a patient level CSV file generated. So if those are of interest to you, simply select the checkbox. The next new feature is the status box, which allows you to run the report if you would like to run the report for all statuses, triggered, not triggered, or excluded, or if you'd like to just run the report. For example, you wanted to run the report for the falls with major injury measure. For those that triggered the measure, you could customize it in that way. If you're looking at a specific measure and you'd like to look for a specific status, you could customize it in that way. And also you can control how many quarters of data are displayed on the report. 4 quarters will display by default, but you can select fewer than that by just selecting the desired quarters in the box. Finally, you can request that the data be displayed by the data correction status. Is the data correction period still open? Is it closed? Or would you like to see both open and closed? And finally, as I mentioned, you have the ability to sort the data on your report. For example, by discharge date, by admission date, by patient last name, patient first name. And you can see that there's a drop-down box available, and you can select your desired sort option. Once you've made your selection, simply select the Submit button. The CASPER reporting application will process your report, and the completed report will be stored in your My Inbox folder. In order to view the data on the report, simply select the report link, and your report data will display. Now, To obtain your provider preview reports, you will want to access the Folders button along the menu bar, and you will see a list of folders that will display in the left-hand side. The My Inbox folder is always a folder where your user-requested reports are stored. You're likely familiar with the VR folder, which is where the validation reports are stored, and the final folder beneath that is the shared folder where your provider preview reports will be stored. And you can see that those are displayed in the right-hand side of the web page. If you have questions about the user-requested reports that are available to you, we encourage you to access the CASPER Reporting User Guide. We've included information about where you'll locate that user guide. It's available on the welcome page where the CASPER reporting link is posted, as well as on the CUTSO website, and we've included a link to that website for you. I'm happy to announce that there will be some changes forthcoming for the IRF providers. The IRFs are scheduled to transition to the new internet-based Quality Improvement and Evaluation, or IKEY system, later this fall. In addition to having the changes for the new system, which you'll learn more about as we get closer to that event, it's important to understand that there is a policy change being implemented on October 1st, 2019. Currently, you are allowed to submit late or corrected assessments to the ASAP system for assessments with target dates up to 36 months prior to the target date. Now, the target date for your IRF-PI records is the discharge date. Effective October 1st, 2019, the policy is changing, and you will be only allowed to submit late or corrected assessments up to 24 months prior to the target date. So we wanted to make you aware of that upcoming policy change. Now, as I said, you'll be receiving more information as we get closer to the transition to the new IKEY system. And in order to prepare for that, we'd like to remind you to go to the CUTSO or Keys Technical Support Office website frequently. We've included a link here for you because we would be posting announcements for you as information becomes available regarding the new IKEY system. We encourage you to sign up for the post-acute care listserv if you've not already done so. We've included a link for you that will take you to the webpage where you can sign up for the listserv announcements. This will be another opportunity for you to receive information about the new IKEY system. And one final ask is that we ask that you ensure that your email address associated to your Keys user ID is up to date in the Keys User Maintenance Application, or the CUMA application. The reason for this is because the email address associated to your Keys user ID will be integrated going forward so that we can be sure that you are receiving updates about the new IKEY system as they're made available. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the IRF Compare website, but I also wanted to take a moment or two and just do a quick review of that website. The IRF Compare website is the public website where the public can access your facility level quality measure results. When you access the IRF Compare website, you can search by a facility by your state, by city and state, or by zip code. You can see that we've included a link that will take you directly to the IRF Compare website on this page. In this particular example, the search was performed by city and state, and this is showing you a list of facilities that were a result of the search by Kansas City, Missouri. Now, you can include or select up to 3 facilities and perform a compare, or if you'd wish to view data for just one facility, you can simply select the facility name. It is a link that will help you drill down to see demographic information, quality measure information, and so forth. Additionally, you will be allowed to select how you would like to view the data. Would you like to view the data in a table format or a graph format? So you can change those based on your preference. You will notice that a definition will appear for the quality measure when the viewer hovers over the measure title, so that will provide additional information about the measure. Finally, there are downloadable data files containing measure results for all IRFs in the nation, and those are available on the data.medicare.gov website. And we've included a link to that website on this slide as well. Finally, you will notice at the bottom of your IRF Compare homepage that there are 3 boxes that allow you to drill down to additional information related to the IRF data on the Compare website. So we encourage you to go there and use those links that are available. I have a few more questions and then we'll get to the activity. So go ahead and access Slido. And the question is, the IRF QRP reports reviewed can all be accessed through, is the correct answer A, the Automated Survey Processing Environment, or ASPEN, B, the National Healthcare Safety Network, or NHSN, C, the Quality Improvement and Evaluation System, or KEYS, or D, the Certification and Survey Provider Enhanced Reports, or CASPER application. So we'll give it a few moments and let everyone have a chance to register their answer. I'm seeing some strong results on the last option, option D. We'll see in a moment. I'll give it another moment. Things seem to be slowing down, so let's go ahead and take a look at the correct answer. Nice job. The correct answer is CASPER. You will find your IRF QRP reports will be accessed through the CASPER reporting application. Now we have a true-false question. Requests for CMS review to review your provider preview report data must be submitted via email. Is the correct answer A, true, or B, false? All right, things are slowing down. Let's go ahead and take a look at the correct answer. Nice job. Correct answer is true. So any request for CMS to review the data on your provider preview report must be submitted via email. And yet another question. The provider preview report provides a blank preview period prior to public reporting. Is the correct answer A, a 15-day review period? B, 30-day preview period, C, a 60-day preview period, or D, a 90-day preview period? Getting some strong response on letter B. I'll give it another moment. Okay, things are slowing down. Let's go ahead and take a look at the correct answer. Nice job. Correct answer is B. You get a 30-day preview period with which you can make a request of CMS to review your data should you have a concern about the data that are included on that report. All right, that brings us to the report activity. So in your folders, there is a packet number 7 that contains information about the report activity. So the scenario for this activity, you are the director of the rehabilitation at Fountain City Rehabilitation Hospital located in Kansas City, Missouri. On a regular basis, you access, analyze, and use CASPER reports to support your facility's quality program. During your comprehensive review of the facility-level quality measure report, you identify an opportunity for improvement. So for your activity instructions, we ask that you work in groups at your table to review the sample CASPER reports that have been provided to you. There's a reports activity worksheet that will guide you through the review and analysis, and we will debrief in probably less than 20 minutes because I ran a little long on time. So how about if we debrief in, let's say 10 minutes? Do you think you can get through it in 10 minutes? Okay. Okay, I think we'll regroup and go through the activity results. So in your packet, you had a list of questions to answer. Review the IRF facility level QM report to identify which measure your facility should target for improvement, and how does the report data support your conclusion. Secondly, using the patient level report, identify the patients who triggered the numerator for the quality measure identified for improvement. And finally, using the IRF PI assessment print report, summarize the findings for each patient who triggered the numerator for the identified quality measure. What conclusions can you make? And how will the information collected from these CASPER reports inform your next steps in development of a performance improvement plan? So let's go ahead and take a look. So hopefully you all arrived at the similar conclusions that are shown here. So of concern for this particular facility is the application of percent of residents experiencing one or more falls with major injury. So you can see the facility percent for this measure for this facility was 12.5% compared to the national average of 0.2%. So that is a concern, right? And you see that there are 3 included in the numerator out of 24 in the denominator. So when looking at your patient level report, hopefully you identified the patients that triggered that measure. There was Timothy Collins, Linda Green, and Tanya Martinez. So this shows you the patient level results. So as you look at the row for Timothy Collins, you'll see for the falls with major injury measure, there is an X in the column for that measure, indicating that measure was triggered for that patient. Similarly, you will see that for Linda Green and Tanya Martinez. Now we move on to the IRF PI assessment print report. So hopefully you've identified why those measures triggered for that those persons. You can see that J1800, are there any falls since admission, was yes. And for this particular patient, they had 1 fall with major injury identified in J1900C during or since admission. So that put the person in the numerator. The same is true for patient Linda Green and for patient Tanya Martinez. Ms. Martinez actually had 2 falls with major injury since admission, so she was included in the numerator as well. So you can contemplate how the information collected from these CASPER reports will inform your next steps in the development of a performance improvement plan. So hopefully performing or participating in this activity has shown you how you can use multiple CASPER reports to really hone in on areas of concern for your facility and use those results or analysis for development of an improvement plan to address those areas of concern. And here's a summary. As we said, there's 3 types of quality measures reported in the IRF QRP reports: the assessment-based, claims-based, and CDC NHSN-based measures. The 3 types of IRF QRP reports available in CASPER are the review and correct report, the quality measure reports, and the provider preview report. And if you have any action plans, feel free to please record those in Slido so others can see some ideas as well. And we are going to go ahead and take a break, 2:50 to 3 o'clock. So if you can come back at 3 o'clock, we'll resume the rest of the afternoon's activities. Thanks so much. You've been a great audience, and have a great afternoon.